Do you know that there are 5 different ways to protect your assets against creditors and also divorce? Today we're going to discuss about them. I'm Bernard Fong, your Extensive Wealth Educator. CPF money are protected from creditors under CPF Act, which means that creditors cannot access our CPF money because it's meant for our own retirement. One exception to this is that if we use our CPF money for investment through the CPF investment scheme, like buying into approved unit trusts, stocks or other instruments approved by CPF, then these particular funds that are being invested will form part of our estate. And the moment it forms part of our estate, in the event of demise, the process is that we have to pay off our debt first, which means that we have to pay off our creditors. Then it will be distributed to our beneficiaries. In the context of divorce, CPF money in most cases will form part of our matrimonial asset, and since it's part of our matrimonial asset, in the event of divorce, it will be distributed then. HDB flats are protected from creditors so long as there is one Singapore owner. But that being said, we still got to pay our mortgages because unless it is fully paid, there's always a charge either by the bank or by HDB itself. If let's say we do not pay off, we default on it, then they have the right to dispose the HDB flat. And upon disposal, there may be some residual value. This residual value can be claimed by the creditors. Trust nomination, or in other words, statutory nomination on your life insurance policy are also protected from creditors. There has to be a very clear distinction between a trust nomination or a revocable nomination. And trust nomination can only be used for our spouse or for our children. That means we parents buy a policy for our spouse or maybe for the children for their education, and we put it under a statutory nomination, and under this type of nomination, then it is very secured, right? We are secured from any claim from the creditor. But given that it's creditor protection, there are some drawbacks in it. And what are the drawbacks? In the event that we want to change any beneficiaries or the ownership of it, requires 2 witnesses to sign off, plus the approval of the beneficiaries. That means all parties involved has to give the go-ahead in order for this amendment to be done. Another less known method of protecting our wealth against creditors and also divorce would be to transfer our own personal assets to another person, and this another person is called the trustee. So it may sound very scary, right? That all our assets are being given to someone and we don't know what will that person do. So that is why typically we have a protector. The protector role is to make sure that the trustee performs its duty according to the intention that is set up. So if let's say we intend to give money to our children for a period of time, the trustee got to fulfill your intention. Now, that being said, while it can serve part of a way to protect our wealth, the circumstances in which we set up a trust is very important. So let's say, for example, if we set up way earlier, maybe 5 years or 7 years, the longer the better, then the structure of the trust becomes solid because we are done at a point of time where negative events has not happened, like bankruptcy, creditors coming to you, or even divorce. Finally, the last way to protect our wealth would be to incorporate a company. So when we incorporate a company, we create a separate legal entity between the company and an individual. What this means is that the company can hold a separate and distinct assets from the individual, which is very unlike a sole proprietor, because a sole proprietorship, the assets of the business is commingled with their own personal assets, and therefore any claims from the business from a sole proprietor, that claim can also be a claim on your own personal assets. So there's no distinction. So with a company, the distinction is very clear. However, when we incorporate a company, the director has a duty to act in the best interest of the company at all times. So we have gone through the 5 ways to protect our assets. So now I'm going to take you to a more advanced form of doing it. So we all know we can protect our asset, our CPF money our HDB flats are protected from creditors. It's a matter of choice whether we want to have a trust nomination for our insurance policies. We may also consider having a family trust for our own personal assets. For clients with higher net worth, different asset classes that they carry in their portfolio, this is what we can do. We can incorporate Company A to hold the asset of all our real estate assets, like commercial properties, industrial properties, or private residential properties housed under Company A. We may have another Company B that will hold all our investments in stocks or unit trusts or ETF for that matter. Then we have our Company C, which is our own company. So Company A, B, and C are separate legal entities, and the liability should not flow between each other. So that is already a form of protection. To add another layer, we have a holding company. The holding company will own the shares of Company A, B, and C. And typically, a holding company has very little operational requirements. The objective of a holding company is just to hold the company shares. So with very little operational requirement, there's very little liability that will come against it. And I create another layer on top of it, the shares of the holding company to be held by a trust. So in other words, the trust owns the share of the holding company. The holding company owns the share of Company A, B, and C. So in essence, I own nothing because the trust owns everything. And that is a form of protection. And to create even higher level of complexity, imagine we put the trust in different jurisdictions, we put the company in different jurisdictions. Maybe my Company A can be Malaysia, Company B can be Singapore, Company C can be US, holding company in Japan. Then you can see it becomes very messy. But in doing so, you can see we're creating a lot more loops for the creditors to jump through. Of course, there will be certain complications as a result of it. People might be, especially financial institutions, they may be a bit more wary of such thing. But in theory, it's possible to do it. So we have come to the end of today's sharing. So I hope that you benefit something from it. So if you find this session to be useful, please comment in the section below. And I'm Bernard Fong, your Extensive Wealth Educator.